Imagine walking into your own home, a place of supposed sanctuary, only to find the two people you trusted most naked in your bathtub. That was my reality, and what I did next, well, it changed everything. It was just a normal Tuesday, you know? A quick lunch break, dash back home to grab some forgotten contract files off the kitchen table. Nothing special, just a quick in and out before heading straight back to the office. But the moment I stepped through my front door, this weird quiet hit me. It wasn't just silence. It felt like the whole house had been holding its breath, and then it just exhaled. That's when I started to notice things. My sister's car, parked all crooked in the driveway, like she'd been in a hurry. The hallway lights were on, even though I'm usually so careful to switch them off before leaving for work. And then, from upstairs, from my master bathroom, the very same one my fiancé used every single morning, I heard it. The unmistakable sound of running water. That was the exact second my stomach plummeted. The exact second the ground beneath my feet decided to just give way. Because deep down, I already knew. Even before I heard the soft, breathy laughter drifting through the steam, I knew. My sister was in my bathtub, and my fiancé was in there with her. I froze right there, at the foot of the stairs. I could hear the water, sloshing and swirling, slipping down the porcelain. And then their voices. His deep, low rumble, her soft, hushed reply. Every part of me screamed to not believe it. My mind was scrambling, begging for any logical explanation, anything that didn't involve this gut-wrenching, soul-crushing betrayal. But my heart already knew. It raced ahead of my brain, before the thought could even fully form. Something inside me just cracked, not with a dramatic, shattering sound, but quietly, like a single, vital thread snapping in a sweater you've worn your whole life. I took a breath, so slow and deliberate it felt alien, and I started to climb. Each step was heavy. On the third step, a memory flashed, vivid and cruel. Thomas, my fiancé, kissing my cheek that very morning, telling me he loved me. On the fifth step, Eliza, my sister, laughing with me over brunch just last Sunday, her hand warm in mine, like she was the best sister in the world. By the time I reached the landing, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just moving, walking straight into the moment that would forever split my life into a before and an after. The bathroom door was cracked open, just a sliver, letting a plume of steam curl lazily into the hallway. I could see the fogged mirror, the soft glow of the lights, and the edge of the tub. My hand, almost on its own, pushed the door before I could talk myself out of it. It swung open, revealing everything. There they were. Thomas, my fiancé, leaning back against the cool porcelain, his arms spread wide, wet hair plastered to his forehead. And Eliza, my sister, settled intimately between his legs, her bare shoulders shining, her fingers tracing patterns across his chest as if she owned him. They were laughing. Just a light, private joke. Until Eliza's head tilted slightly, and her gaze, through the mirror, caught mine. Her smile froze first. Then Thomas's, as he spun around, his eyes locking on me, standing in the doorway like some ghost they'd conjured up. For a long, agonizing moment, none of us spoke. The water churned softly around them. The steam continued its lazy curl. Droplets of water slid down their skin. The whole scene was just obscene in its intimacy. Painfully familiar, yet hideously, sickeningly foreign. Eliza's voice was the first to crack. "And Maddie, this isn't, don't move," I said. Even I barely recognized the sound of my own voice. It was calm, cold, like steel. It sliced through the thick, steamy air. Thomas's mouth opened, but nothing came out. His eyes were wide, not with disbelief, I realized, but with raw, unfiltered panic. I stepped forward, reached for the small key that hung by the towel rack, a key we had never, ever used until now. I swung the door shut on their stunned, naked faces and twisted the lock. The click of the metal was so sharp, so final, it felt like it severed something inside me, setting it free. "Maddie!" Eliza shrieked from the other side, her voice desperate. "What are you doing?" Let us out. Thomas slammed his palm against the door. Malene, don't be ridiculous. We can talk about this. No, I said, backing away from the door. My movements were unnaturally still. You'll stay exactly where you are. I walked into my bedroom, quietly shut the door behind me, and picked up my phone. My hands were perfectly steady, in a way they absolutely shouldn't have been. My body felt almost weightless, my heartbeat strangely distant. I scrolled through my contacts, bypassing so many names, until I found the one I needed, Grant Rowe. My sister's husband. The man who trusted her completely. The man whose entire world, in just a few moments, was about to completely shatter. He answered on the second ring, his voice bright, cheerful, utterly oblivious to the catastrophe that was unfolding. Hey, Maddie, what's up? Grant, I said, my voice surprisingly soft. I need you to come to my house. Right now. There was a beat of confused silence. Is everything okay? He asked. No, I replied. But you need to see it for yourself. I hung up before he could ask another question. Down the hall, Thomas and Eliza had started alternating between frantic begging and angry shouting. But you know what? It didn't matter. Nothing they said, nothing they screamed, mattered anymore. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the very bed Thomas and I had shared for 3 years. And that's when the full, bitter wave of realization crashed over me. The signs. They'd been there all along, hadn't they? Little things. Thomas always stepping outside for work calls. Eliza dropping by more often, asking if Thomas was home, with a tone that, looking back, made my skin absolutely crawl. That moment at Thanksgiving, when I walked into the kitchen and found them standing just a little too close, their conversation stopping so abruptly it felt like hitting a brick wall. But I trusted them. God, help me. I trusted them both. Then, I heard Thomas's footsteps approaching the bedroom door. Maddie, please, open the door. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I replied. There was a pause. Then Eliza's voice, trembling. It didn't mean anything. It was just comfort. It was betrayal, I stated, pushing myself up. Just then, the doorbell chimed downstairs. For the first time since I'd opened that bathroom door, my heartbeat actually picked up. I took one last, steadying breath and walked downstairs. Grant stood at the door in his work uniform, confusion etched all over his face. The moment I opened the door fully, he saw my expression, and his face just stilled. Maddie, he whispered, what happened? They're upstairs, I said. Together. He blinked. Once. What do you mean? In my bathtub, I clarified. I locked them in. Grant's entire posture crumbled. His hand dropped to his sides. For a moment, right there in my entryway, I watched something inside him just break. Show me, he whispered. We walked up the stairs together, neither of us speaking. On the landing, he heard Eliza's voice through the door, her desperate pleading, her rising panic. And something inside him collapsed completely. He reached for the doorknob, but I touched his arm, stopping him. Don't. Not yet. He swallowed hard, staring at that door like it was the edge of a cliff. How long? He asked, his voice cracking. I don't know, I whispered. But long enough. Another thud hit the door from inside, followed by Thomas's voice. Maddie, what are you doing? This is insane. Grant flinched as if the words had physically struck him. He leaned his forehead against the wall, his hands trembling at his sides. She was my wife, he whispered, the words raw. My wife. I lowered my gaze, and he was supposed to be my husband. That was the moment. The air shifted between us, not romantically, but with a shared, painful, deeply human understanding. Two people standing on the same battlefield, wounded by the same two weapons. Grant slowly straightened, his voice firming with a new, quiet resolve. What do we do now? I looked at that locked bathroom door, the steam still whispering beneath it. Their muffled voices inside were dissolving into frantic whispers, panic sinking its claws in deeper. We start, I said quietly, by letting the truth destroy the right people this time. And for the first time since finding them in my bathtub, I felt something new, something powerful rising within me. Not rage, not grief, but a kind of clarity so sharp it almost hurt. This wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The precise moment my life broke open, finally making room for the woman I was meant to become. Grant stood there, barely breathing for a full 3 seconds. His eyes were glued to that closed door, as if staring hard enough could somehow force reality to rewrite itself, undoing what neither of us could unsee. The splashing water sounds had stopped, replaced by the frantic rustle of towels and low, panicked arguing. Their voices, sharp, desperate, and undeniably guilty, bled through the cracks. He turned to me slowly, his voice hollow. "Marlene, my wife is in there with your fiancé." "My sister," I corrected softly. "Your wife is my sister, Grant." The words tasted like rust on my tongue. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths as he instinctively backed away from the door, bracing a hand on the hallway wall. No. Eliza wouldn't. She couldn't. He kept shaking his head, as if sheer denial might reverse what we both knew was true. But then, Eliza's voice, high and cracking with terror, pierced through the door. "You said she never comes home at lunchtime. You said we'd be safe today." Grant froze completely, his pupils constricted, his lips parted as if all the oxygen had been punched out of him. That was it. That was the moment the truth settled. A brutal, final, shattering truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment temptation. This was routine, calculated, scheduled. They were counting on me never walking through my own front door. A white-hot wave rippled under my skin. Not pure rage yet, but that specific kind of clarity that always comes right before something explodes. Grant swallowed hard, staring at the door like a man watching the burial of everything he believed in. "She's been doing this, hey?" His voice cracked on the last word. "In my home," I whispered. "In my bathtub." "And with him," he added, a bitter edge slowly replacing his shock. From inside, Thomas hissed back. "You're the one who begged to come over today. We should have waited until tonight, like usual." Grant flinched. "Tonight," he echoed, unable to hide the sheer devastation in his voice. I stepped closer, laying a steady hand on his arm. "You're not hearing that wrong." He exhaled shakily, his eyes burning with the painful fire of realization. Then he straightened his shoulders, stiffening with a fragile but growing resolve. "I need to know how long this has been happening." "So do I." My voice was calm. Too calm. That worried me more than if I'd been screaming. I knew this calm. It was the stillness that comes right before a storm realizes it no longer needs to be loud. I walked into my bedroom and, almost on autopilot, opened the nightstand drawer where Thomas always tossed his phone when he showered. It wasn't there. For a moment, my pulse jumped until I spotted it on the dresser, plugged in, its screen quietly glowing with notifications. He hadn't even bothered to lock it. 8 years of trusting partners meant he never saw a reason to set a passcode. And I, fool that I was, thought that transparency meant something noble. Grant lingered in the doorway. "Do you want me to step out?" "No," I said. "You deserve the truth as much as I do." I tapped the screen. It opened instantly, and the world, once again, came apart. His messages weren't in the main inbox. They were neatly tucked away in an archived folder. A small, pathetic attempt at hiding what he must have believed I'd never go looking for. But there they were. Hundreds. I clicked on the thread labeled simply E. The first message at the top was from yesterday. "Can't stop thinking about you. Miss the way you laugh when you're nervous. See you soon." Grant let out a sharp, choked breath behind me. I scrolled further. 3 days ago, "She'll never check my phone. Relax. And the kids won't notice I'm gone for an hour." Eliza's reply. "I love that you make me feel alive." Grant pressed a fist to his mouth, looking like he might be sick. "You okay?" I asked softly. "No," he whispered. "But keep going." I scrolled deeper. Way deeper. 3 months back. The earliest flotations surfaced like a knife from murky water. "Last night was incredible. Wish we didn't have to sneak around. Wish things were simpler." Eliza had answered with a photo, shoulders bare, smiling in a way she never smiled around me. Grant looked away, his jaw tight. It wasn't just physical, he whispered. She was connected to him. My stomach tightened, emotionally invested. But the absolute worst part wasn't the sweetness of their messages. It was the strategy, the careful planning, the mentions of my schedule. Mads works late Thursday. Safe. She has a client call at 2. House empty. She doesn't check bank statements often. Or the way Eliza mocked me. Your fiancé is too trusting. She'd never suspect us. She thinks I'm helping you with wedding stress. Cute. I stopped breathing for a moment. Then I came across one that nearly buckled my knees. Once we're married, she'll merge finances. We'll have access to her inheritance soon. Bile rose in my throat. Grant stepped close enough to see the words. Then he whispered, she knew about your inheritance. I must have told them months ago. I whispered, when I was thinking about setting up a trust fund. And she used that information to plan this. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something colder, sharper, a burning clarity. I scrolled again. More messages. Worse messages. We should tell them soon. I feel bad. Not yet. If we wait, she won't get half in a split. Let me secure everything first. Then we can be together openly. Grant stared at me, his eyebrows knitting in horror. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing to strip you of everything you own. It seems so. But why would she? Why would Eliza? She's always envied me, I whispered. But I never thought she hated me. He rested a hand on the dresser, his eyes distant. And I never thought she was capable of this kind of cruelty. By the way, if you're finding yourself absolutely glued to this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what comes next. Trust me. A loud thud from the bathroom door jolted us. Maddie. Eliza shrieked, her voice edged with genuine panic. Please open the door. Her terror sounded almost surreal. She was more afraid of being trapped than of what she'd actually done. Thomas's voice followed, rough and urgent. Malene, this is insane. Just let us talk. I glanced at Grant. He met my eyes, a haunted expression on his face. They are losing control, he murmured, and they know it. Something shifted in him then, something hard and resolute. He straightened, wiped his face, and took a deep, shaky breath. We need to gather everything, he stated. Every message, every detail. They plan to dismantle our lives. We're going to dismantle theirs. He was right. I sat on the bed and kept scrolling through Thomas's phone. Each new message was another fracture in the fragile illusion I'd lived in, another brutal revelation of how deeply and how long they'd been weaving their deceit. One, in particular, made Grant visibly tense. If her sister keeps pushing, we'll move sooner. We can even consider full custody later. Grant froze. Custody? My kids. She wanted your life, I said quietly, just like she wanted mine. His face flushed with a terrifying mix of disbelief and fury. She would have torn my boys from me. Eliza doesn't see consequences, I whispered. Only desires. He paced the room once, then twice, before leaning over the dresser, gripping the edge until his knuckles went white. She manipulated me into believing we could fix things, he whispered, his voice raw. She held my hand 2 nights ago and told me she wanted to rebuild our marriage. And then she came here the very next day. I finished with my fiancé and planned a future with him. And planned to rewrite our lives without us, he concluded. We stood there in a profound silence. It wasn't empty. It was full, too full, full of betrayal, full of clarity, full of a shared, gaping wound that neither of us had asked for. Inside the bathroom, their arguing escalated. This is your fault. Eliza shrieked. You said she never comes home. You insisted on today. Thomas snapped back. We could have waited. I'm tired of waiting, she screamed. I'm tired of being the secret. Grant's eyes widened. They've done this before. Many times. Yes, I whispered. And then came the blow that sealed their fate. You promised me we'd start our new life soon. Eliza cried. Once our inheritance is secure. Grant inhaled sharply. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, Something inside me had settled. I looked at Grant. We need to record everything else they say. He nodded once, sharply. I opened the voice memo app on my phone and set it on the floor beside the door. You know what hurts the most? Grant whispered, his voice raspy. I didn't see any of this. I thought we were building something back. I didn't see it either, I said, because we loved people who didn't love us back. He exhaled, a long, trembling sound. So, what do we do now? I slowly straightened, feeling the weight of my own bones grounding me. Now, I said, we take control of the story. He nodded, jaw tight with conviction. And we make sure, I added, they never take anything from us again. Grant stared at me with a look I can only describe as profound recognition, like he was seeing the beginning of something neither of us had known we were truly capable of. Somewhere behind that locked door, my sister whimpered. Thomas cursed under his breath. Their panic filled the hallway like a thick, choking fog. But out here, standing beside Grant, with the truth glowing cold and sharp in my hands, I felt something powerful rising. Not revenge, not rage, but a reclamation, a return to myself, a new beginning, born from a bathtub full of lies. And this time, I wasn't going to be gentle. The sound behind the bathroom door had shifted entirely. No more laughter, not even pleading. Now, it was raw, rising panic, the kind that screamed their absolute guilt. Thomas's voice cracked first, sharp and anxious. Malene, you can't just keep us in here. Open this door. Eliza cried out right after him. Maddie, please. We need to explain. Grant and I stood on opposite sides of the hallway, the silence between us stronger than their noise. He looked at me, as if waiting to see if I would break, but there was nothing left in me to shatter. I had already broken once, when I found them together. Everything after that was simply reconstruction. I lowered my gaze, pulled up the voice memo app on my phone, and pressed record. Then I carefully set it down near the base of the door. Grant's eyebrows lifted. Good idea. If they're going to confess, I said softly, they're going to do it on tape. Inside, their argument grew louder. This is your fault. Eliza screeched. You said she'd never come home at lunch. I didn't know she'd forget her files. Thomas shouted back. You insisted on coming today. We could have waited. You said today was safe. You pushed me into this, Eliza. Grant's face twisted with disgust. They're turning on each other. I kept my gaze on the door, my voice low and even. Let them. Eliza suddenly wailed. If she tells Mom, if she tells anyone, I'll lose everything. Grant flinched. She's not worried about hurting us. She's worried about consequences. More frantic movement. Something fell over, a shampoo bottle, maybe, but the noise didn't matter. Their words did. Every syllable was another nail in their own coffin. Then Thomas shouted, You promised we'd be careful. You told me she trusted you blindly. My stomach clenched, but my face remained still. I leaned closer to the door. You're right about one thing, Thomas. They both froze. The sudden silence was so absolute it seemed to vibrate. My voice was steady, cold. I trusted her, and I trusted you. And that's exactly why this is never going to end the way you want it to. Eliza whimpered. Maddie, please. We didn't mean, stop. I cut in. Save it. Your words don't matter anymore. I could almost feel them shrink on the other side of the wood. Grant stepped closer, arms folded tightly across his chest. They deserve everything coming to them. Eliza, he called sharply. How long has this been going on? She didn't answer at first, but then the sound of her crying deepened, almost childlike. At first, I don't know. Don't lie, Grant said, his voice slicing through the air. You lied to me for months. Don't do it again. Silence. Then, 3 months. She choked out. Maybe more. Grant's jaw clenched. More, he repeated under his breath, confirming what we already knew. I pushed away from the door and walked to the dresser where Thomas always left his wallet. I picked it up, opened it, and sifted through the receipts. Not because I needed more evidence. I already had plenty. but because I wanted to know how far this deception went. Grant came to stand next to me. I pulled out a folded hotel receipt. Lakeside Inn, deluxe suite, 2 guests, charged to T. Revel. Grant's jaw dropped. That was the weekend she told me she had migraines. He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Migraines, right. I didn't respond. I opened Thomas's wallet again and found another slip of paper. This one, a scribbled note in Eliza's handwriting. Tomorrow lunch. Door unlocked. Grant stared at the note as if seeing the bones of his marriage laid bare. She wrote reminders. He whispered. God. Inside the bathroom, the tone changed again. No more yelling. Now, it was frantic, fearful whispering. She's going to ruin us, Thomas muttered. You said we'd be safe. Eliza hissed. You said, shut up for once, he snapped. Grant lifted his head sharply, his expression pinched. They are scared. They don't know what we're planning. Good, I murmured. Their panic fueled my strength. I stepped closer to the door again. Eliza. Her breath hitched audibly. Yes. Do you remember when you told me I was your best friend? My voice was almost gentle. Yes, she whispered. I meant it. You were lying, I said simply. She sobbed loudly. No, I wasn't. I was just confused. Thomas made me. He didn't force you, Grant said sharply. You went to him willingly. Her silence confirmed it. We heard you, I added. We heard everything. A choked gasp sounded from inside. Then frantic knocking. You're recording us. Thomas yelled. Malene, this is insane. No, I replied. This is clarity. Grant let out a breath, shaking his head with something like awe. You're stronger than both of them combined. I didn't feel strong. I felt awake. Awake in a way I hadn't been for years. I walked to the nightstand, opened a drawer, and pulled out my notebook, my safe place for lists, recipes, reminders. I flipped to a blank page and wrote down the first line. Protect everything they tried to take. Grant watched me from the doorway. What now? Now we gather all the evidence, I said. We secure my accounts. We freeze anything they touched. I tapped the pencil on the page. And then, we let the truth do the rest. He nodded. I'll stand with you. I believed him, because unlike Thomas and Eliza, he hadn't asked for this. He hadn't manipulated anyone. He was just another victim, another person used like a pawn by the 2 people who should have cherished us. Suddenly, Eliza's voice broke through again. High, desperate, hysterical. Thomas, tell her it wasn't serious. Tell her we were just confused. But Thomas's response was chilling in its honesty. It was serious. Don't pretend now. Grant's eyes widened. They are confessing everything. I pressed record on my second device, my tablet, and set it by the door as a backup. It wasn't love. Eliza screamed. It was supposed to be perfect after the inheritance, after we moved into the townhouse. Grant stiffened. Townhouse. So, she admits it. And the inheritance. I murmured. She said it outright. Then Thomas yelled. We wouldn't have needed her money if you weren't so goddamn impulsive. The hallway went utterly still. They were counting on you financially, Grant whispered. They were building a life on your assets. And yours. I added. He nodded once. What followed from inside the bathroom was the most revealing exchange yet. Eliza cried. You promised we'd get everything. You promised me we'd be together once she signed the papers. I promised you nothing. Thomas snapped. You were the one who kept pushing for more. You said I was better for you than she ever was. I said that to get you to stop crying. Grant looked stunned. They're eating each other alive. Good, I whispered. Let them tear the truth out of each other. He leaned against the wall, exhaling shakily. What's your next step? I met his eyes. Control. Of what? Everything. I turned away from the door, toward the window where sunlight streamed into my bedroom. Warm, golden, gentle against the storm buried inside me. I'm done being helpless, I said quietly. I'm done being the woman they thought they could blindfold. Grant stepped closer, his voice steady. And what kind of woman are you now? I stayed at the notebook page. The one who chooses what happens next. Behind me, Eliza slammed a hand against the door. Maddie, please don't do this. I'm your sister. I didn't turn. You were my sister, I said. But you stopped acting like one a long time ago. Her sobbing grew louder, messier, hollow. Thomas's muttered curses echoed faintly behind her. They were unraveling, and for the first time, I realized I no longer was. Grant looked at me with a mix of admiration and sorrow. What now? I closed the notebook, picking up my phone with calm certainty. Now, I said, I call my lawyer. Grant nodded. Good. Let's end this. And as I walked out of the bedroom, leaving the locked bathroom behind us, I felt a sensation that almost startled me. Strength. It didn't roar. It didn't burn. It simply settled into me like a truth I had been waiting my entire life to discover. Marjorie Quinn arrived at my house like a force of nature, with the kind of calm presence that makes you believe any storm, no matter how wild, can be navigated with a single, steady conversation. She stepped inside without hesitation, her leather briefcase in hand, her silver hair pulled back neatly, her gaze sharp enough to slice through the panic still simmering upstairs. Grant closed the door behind her, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause, holding its breath. Tell me everything, she said simply. I didn't waste a second. I handed her Thomas's phone, already open to the messages that had systematically gutted my life. She adjusted her glasses, scanning each line with measured precision. She didn't react with outrage or shock like a friend might, but with the analytical mind of someone meticulously assembling a case, brick by painful brick. Grant pointed upstairs. They're still in the bathroom, he confirmed, locked in. Marjorie raised an eyebrow. Good. Less opportunity for them to destroy evidence. Inside the bathroom, the muffled argument intensified, as if they sensed reinforcements had arrived. Marjorie glanced at the ceiling and nodded approvingly. If they are panicking, they are confessing. Have you recorded anything? She asked. I gestured to the phone by the base of the door. Yes, and a backup, she inquired. Grant lifted my tablet. It's running too. She offered a slight, almost imperceptible smile. Excellent. She scrolled further through Thomas's messages, lingering on the inheritance references, then moving to his archived emails. When she reached the prenup draft, her expression hardened. This isn't just cheating, she stated. This is premeditated financial exploitation. The words felt like validation and devastation all at once. Grant paced a few steps, rubbing a hand over his jaw. We suspected, but hearing you say it. It's exactly what it looks like, she confirmed. They plan to merge accounts, funnel assets, and protect themselves legally while systematically stripping you of your rights. My pulse thudded painfully. What do we do? We protect your inheritance first, she said, her voice firm. And we use their panic to secure more evidence. As if on cue, Eliza cried out from the bathroom, her voice cracking like glass. Thomas, she's going to freeze everything. We'll lose the townhouse. Marjorie's eyebrows lifted. Townhouse. I nodded. They plan to move into one. On your money, Grant added bitterly. Marjorie tapped her pen against her notebook. We'll need to document that. We moved into my bedroom, and she set up her binder on the bed. The room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a war room. She opened to a blank page titled Emergency Asset Protection. Step 1, she said, freeze all shared or vulnerable accounts immediately. Step 2, file for an injunction preventing either party from accessing or transferring funds. Step 3, gather verbal admissions. Behind the door, Thomas shouted, Marlene, listen to me. You're overreacting. This wasn't supposed to go this far. Marjorie smirked. Keep talking, she murmured under her breath. I sat beside her as she took notes. He had a spreadsheet, I whispered. He labeled my wedding as Phase 1. That will destroy him in court, she said calmly. Divorce judges despise calculated deceit, especially involving finances. She pulled up my banking app and guided me through securing each account, savings, checking, trust funds, investment portfolios. Every single tap she directed felt like taking one more piece of my life back from him. Grant sat across from us, scrolling through additional records on Thomas's phone. Suddenly, he froze. "There's more," he said, his voice tightening. Marjorie and I both looked up. "What is it?" I asked. Grant turned the screen toward us. Eliza paid Thomas. "Look, a $3,500 withdrawal labeled consulting fee. My stomach dropped. She paid him. Marjorie clicked her pen. "Financial collusion. This is gold." Grant's voice cracked. "She paid him to betray you. And to betray me." I swallowed hard. They were a team. "A criminal one," Marjorie corrected. "They exploited your trust for personal gain. This will not end well for them." Inside the bathroom, another argument erupted. "You promised we'd get the money." Eliza sobbed. "You said it would be easy." "It was supposed to be." Thomas snapped. "Until you demanded more." Marjorie nodded at the door. "Move closer. Get this clearly on the recording." Grant placed the phone right beside the gap beneath the door, angling the microphone inward. Then came the next blow. Eliza screamed. "What about the inheritance? You said she'd sign everything because she trusted you." Thomas hissed back. "She would have, if she hadn't shown up." Marjorie mouthed the word perfect and scribbled furiously on her pad. I felt sick, dizzy, grounded, and empowered all at once. It was surreal, watching their conspiracy unravel, not with dramatic revelations, but with their own voices breaking under pressure. Marjorie straightened. "Malene, I need you to clarify something. Your parents' estate. Did Eliza receive her portion?" I shook my head. "Not yet. My father wanted her to be more stable first." Marjorie leaned back. "Then this explains her motive. Jealousy, desperation, entitlement. Combined with Thomas's greed, it became a perfect storm." "And we were the casualties," Grant muttered. "No," Marjorie corrected gently. "Casualties don't rise. Survivors do." Something in me steadied. A sudden, forceful knock came from the door, rattling the frame. "Malene!" Thomas shouted. "Unlock this door. We can fix this." "No," I said. He banged again. "You don't understand." "I understand exactly," I replied quietly. "And so will the court." There was another stretch of frantic whispering inside. Then Eliza wailed. "She's going to ruin us. She's going to ruin everything." "You did that yourselves," Grant muttered. Marjorie stewed and approached the door, her expression composed and predatory. "Thomas," she called, her tone sharp and professional. "How long has this affair been happening?" Silence. Then shuffling. Then Thomas's voice, dripping with fear and irritation. "Who is that?" "I'm Malene's attorney," she said. "And I need clarification. Did this affair begin 3 months ago, or earlier?" "You can't use this in court," he shouted. "We absolutely can," she replied coolly. "You're speaking freely." Eliza screeched. "Don't answer her." Thomas's voice rose. "Fine. It started months ago, but she came on to me first." Eliza gasped. "You liar." More fighting erupted. It was almost unbelievable that two people who had worked so hard to hide their betrayal could unravel so quickly when the truth cornered them. Marjorie stepped back, satisfied. "That's enough for our purposes." Grant sank onto the edge of the bed. "I can't believe this. She risked everything we built for him. And he risked everything for her," I added. "And they both deserve what's coming," he said. Marjorie gathered her notes. "The emergency injunction will prevent them from touching a single dollar of your estate or accounts. The audio evidence makes your position unshakable. And combining this with the messages and financial records," she looked at me with a faint nod, "you're standing on solid ground." I exhaled a breath that felt like it carried months of tension. "What do I do next?" I asked. "You decide how you want this story to end," she said softly. "Do you want confrontation, quiet separation, public exposure?" I glanced toward the bathroom door. A confrontation was inevitable. Thomas shouted again. "Malene, let us out right now." Eliza whimpered. "Please, Maddie, I'm your sister." The word didn't land the way it once did. Grant looked at me. "What do you want, Malene?" I closed the notebook in my lap. The pencil lines were still fresh, written moments ago when I didn't yet know how deep their betrayal went. But now I was ready. I want them to face what they did, I said, my voice full, without excuses. Marjorie nodded approvingly. Then we'll set the stage. She closed her binder with a decisive snap. Once you sign the injunction, everything changes. Grant stood beside me. I'm with you every step. I looked at the door one last time, hearing the rising panic inside, the undoing of the lies they crafted so meticulously. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something powerful take root in my chest. Control, strength, choice. Let's do it, I said. And in the hallway, the house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment everything would shift. Grant stood beside me as Marjorie finished drafting the emergency injunction. The printer hummed in the corner of my bedroom, spitting out the pages that would change the course of everything Thomas and Eliza had planned. The faint scent of paper and ink filled the room, oddly grounding in the middle of all this chaos. When Marjorie handed me the packet, my hands didn't shake. Sign here, she said, tapping her pen on the first page. I read the header, Petition for Emergency Asset Protection. A wave of concrete control washed over me. Thomas had expected me to be naive, emotional, confused. But here I was, calmly signing a legal document that safeguarded everything he had been plotting to steal. Grant paced in front of the window, muttering under his breath. She really thought she could replace you. She thought she deserved your life. Not anymore, I said softly. When I finished signing, Marjorie gathered the papers neatly. I'll file this electronically from my office, she said. In 2 hours, everything will be frozen. You won't be able to access a dime. A sudden bang hit the bathroom door, jarring the silence. Malene, Thomas shouted, his voice raw. If you freeze those accounts, you'll ruin us. Us. The word made my skin crawl. I stepped into the hallway, staring at the door with a strange, unnerving calm. There's no us, I said. There never was. There was me, and the two of you, plotting behind my back. Grant joined me, his face tense. You ruined yourselves, he added sharply. Stop blaming her. Inside, Eliza sobbed louder. Grant, please, think about the kids. I am, he said. For the first time in months, I actually am. Another knock sounded, not from the bathroom, but downstairs. 3 short, heavy raps against the front door. Marjorie lifted her head, expecting someone. No, I said. Grant frowned. Maybe one of the neighbors saw my truck. We went downstairs together. My heart thudded, not with fear, but with a strange anticipation. When I opened the door, Officer Dana Wells stood on my porch, her blue uniform crisp in the afternoon light. She was a familiar face, our neighborhood's community officer, someone who had helped coordinate our safety meetings. Malene, she greeted with a sympathetic smile. I'm sorry to bother you, but we got a call. A call. I repeated. She nodded. Someone inside your house reported they were being unlawfully detained. Grant's eyes widened. They called the police. Officer Wells held up a tablet. Anonymous report, but they said 2 people were locked in a bathroom and feared for their safety. I closed my eyes for a slow second, inhaling deeply. Of course, officer, I said calmly. Everything is under control, and they are not in danger. That's not what the caller says, she replied gently. I do need to check on them. Procedure. Marjorie stepped forward, like a shield. Officer Wells, my name is Marjorie Quinn, attorney at law. I represent Ms. Arden. There's been no unlawful detainment. Ms. Arden simply exercised her right to secure her home after discovering a domestic betrayal. Officer Wells blinked. Betrayal. Marjorie lowered her voice. Her fiancé and her sister are upstairs, in her bathroom, unclothed, having been caught in the middle of an affair. Officer Wellesley's jaw dropped slightly. Oh. Grant ran a hand through his hair. It's exactly what it sounds like. She pressed her lips together. Okay, then, why are they locked in? Because, Marjorie said coolly, they attempted to flee, destroy evidence, and manipulate the situation. My client acted to preserve safety and documentation until legal counsel arrived. Officer Wells nodded slowly. We've seen this before. Sadly. She sighed. I still need to confirm they are unharmed. Procedure. We let her upstairs. When we reached the bathroom door, Thomas immediately began pounding. Officer, thank God. She's keeping us trapped. You have to let us out. Eliza's voice echoed behind him. They are trying to ruin our lives. Officer Wells looked at me. Is the door locked? Yes, I said. And you'll unlock it when you're ready. She nodded. Please step back. I did. Grant stood beside me. Marjorie took notes. Officer Wells knocked firmly. This is the police. I'm opening the door. She motioned to me. I unlocked it and immediately stepped aside as she swung it open. Steam billowed out first. Then Thomas and Eliza, wrapped in towels, dripping, their eyes wild like cornered animals, scrambling for sympathy. Thomas pointed at me instantly. Arrest her. She trapped us. Officer Wells held up one hand. Sir, calm down. Eliza stepped forward, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She's crazy. She locked us in. Dana's gaze flicked between them, unimpressed. You two look unharmed. Were you at any point threatened physically? No, Eliza muttered. But was there any attempt to harm you? No. Did she lock you in before or after discovering the affair? Dana asked pointedly. Their silence was answer enough. Dana exhaled slowly. You are not victims of a crime. You are victims of your own choices. Thomas stared at her in disbelief. She can't do this. She didn't, Dana said. You did. Grant let out a shaky breath. Marjorie spoke next. Officer, we would like them removed from the home so Ms. Arden can proceed with securing her property. Officer Wells nodded. Absolutely. Eliza's jaw dropped. Removed? You can't remove me from my sister's house. No, I said coldly. But I can ask you to leave. I have a right to be here, she snapped. This is my home, I reminded her. You forfeited your right to it when you chose to violate it. Thomas stepped toward me, eyes pleading. Malene, please don't do this. We can fix this. Officer Wells stepped between us. Back up. He froze. I stared at him, searching for the man I once loved. But all I saw was a stranger, wrapped in a towel and in fear. You didn't break my heart, I said. You freed me. His face fell. I turned to Eliza. You were my sister. I still am, she cried. No, I whispered. You're not. That broke her. She crumpled against the sink, sobbing. Marjorie cleared her throat. Officer, please escort them outside while they dress. We'll retrieve their clothes. Thomas glared. You can't make us leave. Officer Wells crossed her arms. So, I can, or I can arrest you for disorderly conduct and trespassing at a residence you were explicitly told to vacate. They both fell silent. Minutes later, after Grant tossed them their clothing and the officer stood guard, Thomas and Eliza were ushered downstairs. Before leaving, Thomas looked back at me, his eyes glassy. Malene, please. I love you. It was almost laughable. You loved what you thought you could take from me, I said. Not me. Grant stepped closer, a steady, solid presence. Time to go, he told them. Officer Wells guided them out the door. When the door finally shut behind them, the house fell into a silence that rang with something new. Not betrayal, not anger, but reclamation. Marjorie placed a hand on my shoulder. You handled that with more dignity than they deserved. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. Grant's voice was soft when he spoke. You okay? I nodded. Not yet, but I will be. He offered a small, tired smile. We both will. Marjorie collected her things. Next step is filing the injunction and preparing for the fallout. Are you ready for what comes next? I looked toward the empty hallway. The bathroom door still ajar, steam fading like ghosts leaving the room. Yes, I said. And for the first time, the word felt like truth. I'm ready. The moment the front door shut behind Thomas and Eliza, my house exhaled. It felt like it had been holding its breath through every scream, every confession, every single raw layer of betrayal. Silence settled, thick and trembling, like dust after a collapse. I stood in the middle of the hallway, staring at the empty doorway where they'd just been escorted out, and an unexpected wave of dizziness swept through me. Grant noticed immediately. "Sit," he said gently, guiding me to the living room sofa. I sank into the cushions, my body suddenly aware of 1,000 aches I hadn't felt until now. Adrenaline had carried me through the storm upstairs, through the police intervention, through the legal declarations, through betrayal laid bare. But now that the noise was gone, my body finally understood it had survived something catastrophic. Grant crouched in front of me, searching my face. "It's hitting you now," he said softly. "It always hits after the shock fades." I breathed slowly, deliberately. "I'm okay." "You're in shock," he said again, more firmly. "Anyone would be." Before I could respond, Marjorie walked in from the dining room, her binder tucked beneath her arm. "Malene, you need to hydrate," she instructed. "Shock dehydrates you faster than heat." Grant immediately stood and went to the kitchen. I could hear the sink turn on, water filling a glass. When he returned, he pressed it into my hands like it was something fragile. I took a long sip. The water tasted like clarity. Marjorie sat across from me. "Now that they are out, we move into phase 2. I blinked. "Phase 2. She nodded. "Public protection. Professional protection. Emotional insulation. This is where you fortify everything they attempted to shatter." Grant sat beside me, folding his hands. "We're doing this together." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just listened to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, to the soft creaking of the house settling, to the faint echo of my heartbeat as it found a calmer rhythm. Then I whispered, "Start with what I need to do next." Marjorie flipped open her binder. "We need to call your employer. Not because you did anything wrong, but because they need to understand why you won't be in for the remainder of the day, and possibly tomorrow." "I'm not ready to explain this," I murmured. "You don't have to," she reassured me. "You just tell them you had a domestic emergency. The specifics are your choice." Grant nodded. "I'll call mine, too. They should know." There was a subtle shift in the room when he said it. Not romantic, not intimate, but aligned. We were two people thrown into the same war, now planning strategies side by side. Marjorie continued. "Next, we secure your electronics. Change passwords. Enable two-factor authentication. Check for anything he may have accessed recently." My stomach dropped. He knew my passwords. Grant's eyes widened. "All of them." I swallowed. "We shared them. Not everything, but enough." Marjorie sighed. "Then, assume he has been monitoring your accounts for weeks." A chill ran down my spine. Weeks? Perhaps months. The realization hit me like cold water. Thomas hadn't been careless. He had been prepared. Organized. Grant reached for my phone. "Let's fix that right now." We went through every app, every login, every piece of my digital life. Password by password, door by door. I locked Thomas out. With each change, I felt a piece of myself return. When we finished, I sat back against the sofa, exhausted but lighter. "What about Eliza?" I whispered. Grant's expression tightened. "She'll go to her parents' house first. She'll cry. She'll twist the narrative. She'll say we overreacted, and they'll believe her," I said quietly. "Not for long," Marjorie interjected. "Because when they hear the truth, they'll have no choice but to understand." I rubbed my temples. "This is going to destroy my mother." Grant lowered his gaze. "It'll destroy my boys, too." I looked up sharply. "What do you tell them?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. They are too young for the whole truth. But they'll know something happened." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text message from Eliza. "Please, I need to talk to you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Grant leaned over to read it. "Don't respond," he said quickly. Marjorie nodded. "Absolutely not. Anything you say can be twisted into leverage." Another message came. "We were stupid. Thomas said you'd forgive us. He said you'd understand. Please talk to me." I clenched the phone tightly, my breath catching. "She thinks I'll forgive her." "She thinks you're still the old you," Grant murmured. "The one she could manipulate." That hit deeper than he knew. Another text. "Mom is asking where I am. What do I tell her?" I stared at the screen, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. Not because I missed her, not because I felt sympathy, but because this was a sister who once braided my hair before school, who once held my hand at our parents' funeral. Now she wanted me to write her alibi. Grant took the phone gently. You don't owe her anything. Not an explanation. Not a lie. Not comfort. I nodded, but my throat felt tight. More messages came. Please don't tell anyone. We can fix this. You're my sister. Please don't ruin me. I need you. Grant whispered. She never needed you until you were the one thing that could save her. Marjorie stood. I'll take care of blocking their numbers. You can allow only emergency contacts. The moment she enabled the block, my phone fell silent. It was the quietest sound I'd ever heard. Grant placed a hand on my shoulder. She won't stop trying, but you have to. I looked at him, steady and unflinching. I will. A sudden knock rattled the front door again, sharp and impatient. Grant's posture stiffened. Stay here. But I stood. No, I need to face this. We walked together to the door. When I opened it, there stood my mother, her hair disheveled, eyes wild, face flushed with worry. Malene, she exclaimed, grabbing my arms. Eliza called me crying. She said something terrible happened. What did you do? What did they do? I thought, not what did they do? Just like that, a familiar pain rose up my throat. Grant stepped between us slightly. Mrs. Arden, maybe this isn't. She held up a hand to silence him. I'm speaking to my daughter. What happened? Why did you throw your sister out of your home? I inhaled shakily, my chest tightening. She didn't tell you. I asked. No, my mother said, her voice trembling. Just that you've made a mistake. A huge one. A bitter laugh escaped me. She made the mistake. Mom, not me. My mother blinked rapidly, her face crumpling, eyes widening in disbelief. Malene, she's your sister. She was, I corrected. Then she got into my bathtub with my fiancé. Silence fell. My mother's face crumpled, her eyes widening even further. She what? In my house. Today. Her knees nearly buckled. Grant caught her elbow, steadying her. Oh, God, she whispered. She didn't tell me that. Tears filled her eyes, blending grief and humiliation. Grant guided her inside, and I shut the door gently behind us. My mother collapsed onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. How could she do this to you? To me. I sat beside her, because she thought she'd get away with it. She looked up, her eyes glassy. And Thomas was planning to marry me and drain my inheritance. She stared, then whispered, You saved yourself. I had help, I said, glancing at Grant. He gave a small, tired nod. My mother exhaled shakily, gripping my hands. What do you need from me? The question stunned me. She had always taken Eliza's side, always defended her, always soothed her. But now she was looking at me first. I swallowed the rising emotion. Stand with me, I whispered. Don't let her rewrite the story. My mother nodded firmly. I will. I promise. It was the first time in years I believed her. Marjorie re-entered the room. We should prepare for tomorrow. There will be fallout. Pushback. Lies. Grant looked at me. We're ready. But I shook my head. No, I said quietly. We're not. Not yet. They both turned toward me. I need to confront her, I said. Face to face. Not in anger, not in screaming, but with truth. Grant frowned. Mads, I need her to hear it, I insisted. I need her to understand. Silence stretched, heavy but unbroken. Then Marjorie closed her binder. If that's what you choose, she said, we will prepare you. Grant placed a steadying hand on my back. And for the first time that day, I didn't feel like I was standing alone. Tomorrow, the real confrontation would begin. And this time, I would walk into it, aware, awake, and unbreakable. I barely slept that night. The words hit the room like a slap. I stared at her, feeling something inside me go very still. Eliza, I said softly, he didn't choose you. He used you, the same way you used him. You both used each other, but you don't get to rewrite the story now. She shook her head, squeezing her eyes shut. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to fall in love with him. I blinked slowly. Love. Her lips trembled. I thought he loved me, too. I let out a slow exhale. Then why was he planning to take my money? She flinched. Why was he writing prenups designed to trap me? Her breath hitched. Why was he telling you to pressure me, manipulate me? Why was he timing my schedule down to the minute so you could sneak into my home? She covered her ears. Stop, stop, stop. No, I said quietly. You stop. She opened her eyes. Look at what you did, I whispered. Really? Look. Her gaze trembled, glistening. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't care if you did. Silence stretched thick between us. Finally, she whispered, what do you want from me? The question I had asked myself all night finally had an answer. Honesty, I said. Not excuses. Not tears. The truth. Her throat bobbed. I was jealous of you. My whole life. I felt like I was always living in your shadow. And when Thomas looked at me, it felt like for once, someone saw me. My stomach twisted, not with sympathy, but with understanding. And instead of getting help, instead of telling me how you felt, you destroyed what we had. I didn't mean to, she cried. But you did, I said softly. And now we live with the consequences. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at her, really looked, and realized something important. I don't hate you, I said. Her eyes widened with a flicker of hope. But I don't trust you, and I don't owe you forgiveness. Her hope shattered like thin glass. Maddie, I'm not here to fix you, I said. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to tell you that I'm done letting you take from me. She dissolved into tears again. I stood. That's all I came to say. When I walked out of the living room, Grant was waiting, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes searching mine. You okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. Yes, for the first time. Yes. He offered his hand, and I took it, not romantically, but in solidarity. Together, we walked out the front door, leaving my sister behind with the truth she could no longer twist. And for the first time in my life, I felt the world shift in my favor. Grant drove us back to my house in silence. But it wasn't the suffocating kind that crushes a person. It was the kind that lets everything rearrange itself quietly inside your chest. The kind that makes you realize confrontation doesn't always end in screaming. Sometimes it ends in truth, settling like dust after a demolition. When we pulled into my driveway, the afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the pavement. My home looked unchanged from the outside, but I knew better. The walls had heard too much. The floors had held too many lies. The bathroom upstairs still carried the steam and scent of betrayal. Grant cut the engine and rested his hands on the steering wheel, exhaling a long breath. You handled that better than anyone I know. I didn't feel strong, I admitted. Not really. He shook his head. Strength isn't feeling fearless. It's doing what you did anyway. His words sat warm in my chest. When we stepped inside, the emptiness felt different from yesterday's. Not hollow, not terrifying, just clean, like something poisonous had finally been drained out. But our peace didn't last long. A car door slammed outside. Grant and I both turned toward the window. A dark gray sedan sat crooked in the driveway. Thomas's. The sight of it made the air tighten. He was coming back. Of course he was. Grant moved instinctively in front of me. Stay here. No, I said quietly. I'm done hiding. Before he could stop me, I opened the door. Thomas stood halfway up the walkway, his eyes wild and sunken, his hair disheveled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who'd spent the night drowning in the wreckage he created. Malene, he breathed out, stepping closer. Thank God. We need to talk. Grant stepped forward too, shoulders squared. You shouldn't be here. Thomas ignored him, his eyes fixed only on me. I made a mistake, he said quickly. A terrible one, I know, but everything's spiraling out of control. We can fix this if we just talk privately. The audacity would have been laughable if it weren't so painfully familiar. There's nothing to fix, I said. No, don't say that. He rushed another step forward. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. Grant scoffed. You loved her so much you took her sister to bed. Thomas glared at him. This is between me and her. No, I said. It's between all of us now. He swallowed, his eyes glassy. Look, Eliza was vulnerable. She was confused. I was trying to help her, but things escalated. I didn't plan it. Yes, you did, I said. I saw the messages, the spreadsheets, the prenup. You planned everything. He froze, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough to betray the truth. Then he shook his head desperately. It wasn't like that. You're misinterpreting things. I was trying to protect us. You know how stressful finances can be. Stop, I said sharply. He flinched at my tone. I'm not blind. I'm not stupid. And I'm done listening to you twist my reality. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Malene, please. That lawyer is getting in your head. She's protecting me, I corrected. Something you never intended to do. Grant folded his arms. Get to the point, Thomas. Why are you really here? Thomas looked at me with something brittle in his eyes. Fear, guilt, entitlement. The police took statements this morning. I need you to clarify that I wasn't holding anyone against their will. You weren't, I said. You were the one trying to escape. His shoulders sagged in relief. But that doesn't erase what you did. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you tell them everything, I could lose my job. Good. And my reputation. Good. And possibly be investigated for fraud. Very good. He reached out like he might touch my arm, but stopped when Grant moved between us. Malene. Thomas pleaded, his voice breaking. Please don't ruin my life. I stayed at him, feeling something hollow and cold settle in my chest. I'm not ruining your life. I'm letting the truth ruin your lives. He staggered back as if the air itself rejected him. I messed up, he whispered. I messed up so badly. But I can change. I can do better. We can get married just like we planned. I exhaled a bitter laugh. You were planning my financial demise, not our wedding. You're twisting it, he insisted. I was preparing, strategizing, thinking long-term. Without me, I said. About me. Against me. Grant shook his head slowly. You're unbelievable. Thomas turned to him, anger flashing. You think you're any better? You think you never made mistakes in your marriage? Grant's face hardened. I didn't sleep with her sister. The silence that followed was suffocating. Thomas looked back at me, desperation rising. I need you to believe me, he whispered. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said softly. Every day you lied. Every time you came home to me after being with her. Every time you looked me in the eye and said you loved me. He stepped forward, almost frantic now. The house was quiet, too quiet, after the chaos that had shaken its very walls only hours earlier. I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional creak of wood settling. Everything felt foreign. My bedroom, my sheets, the faint trace of Thomas's cologne on the pillowcase beside me. It all felt like a crime scene rather than a home. At sunrise, I finally got up. My body felt heavy, but my mind was strangely clear. Today, I would confront my sister, not with rage, not with screaming, but with the truth she had tried so hard to bury. Today, I would take back the narrative she had attempted to rewrite. Downstairs, I found Grant in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee. His eyes were tired, his shirt wrinkled, but he straightened the moment he saw me. You didn't sleep, he said softly. Neither did you. He didn't deny it. You ready for this? I inhaled deeply. Ready enough. We sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the blinds. For a moment, it felt almost normal, as if we were two friends having early breakfast rather than two betrayed partners preparing for an emotional war. Marjorie texted, Grant said, sliding his phone toward me. She'll meet us at her office. She thinks it's smart to go over everything first, so you're calm and grounded before you face Eliza. I nodded. She's right. Grant studied my face. Mads, whatever happens today, remember that you don't owe Eliza forgiveness, or understanding, or compassion. A small smile tugged at my lips. Then what do I owe her? He hesitated. Closure. On your terms. I looked down at my hands. Closure. I wasn't sure if I even knew what that meant anymore. But I knew I needed to see her. To look her in the eyes and understand how someone I grew up with, someone I shared bedrooms and secrets and meals and childhood dreams with, could betray me with such precision. Where is she? I asked. Grant exhaled. At your mother's house. She slept there last night. Of course she did, I muttered. Running home, crying, into familiar arms, painting herself as a victim in a story where she had been the villain all along. I stood. Let's go. The drive to Marjorie's office was quiet, but it wasn't the suffocating kind. It was the kind that let everything rearrange itself quietly inside your chest. Grant kept glancing at me, like he was making sure I wasn't about to break. But I didn't break. I didn't shake. I didn't even cry. It was as if everything inside me had solidified overnight, cooled into something sharp and resolute. When we entered Marjorie's office, she was already waiting in the conference room, a stack of files and 2 cups of coffee on the table. She didn't greet us with small talk or sympathy. She simply gestured for us to sit. We prepare now, she said. Emotionally, legally, strategically. She began reviewing everything. Every message, every recording, every detail of the affair and the financial schemes they had plotted. She treated their betrayal like evidence in a criminal case. And maybe that was exactly what I needed. Someone who stripped the emotion away and left only the consequences. When she finished, she closed the binder and looked directly at me. Malene, before we go any further, I need to ask you, why do you want to see your sister? The question pierced deeper than expected. I swallowed. Because I need her to hear the truth, I whispered. Not the version she's trying to twist. Not the story she's already telling. I need her to know the damage she caused. Marjorie nodded, but didn't soften. And what do you want from her? I didn't answer immediately. The truth was still taking shape inside me. I want her to understand she didn't break me, I said finally. She tried. They both tried. But she failed. Grant let out a breath, a small, proud sound. Marjorie closed her binder. Then let's prepare for her manipulation. She listed everything. The tactics Eliza might use, the tears she would weaponize, the excuses she would cling to, the story she would twist, the blame she would deflect. You must remain neutral, Marjorie said. If she senses guilt, she'll exploit it. If she senses doubt, she'll pounce. If she senses compassion, she'll rewrite the narrative. Keep your power. I nodded, absorbing every word. When we left the office, my heart hammered with an unfamiliar strength. Not anger, not revenge, but clarity. Grant drove us to my mother's home, a modest beige house with a white porch and a hydrangea bush that Eliza and I had planted as teenagers. The bush was blooming now, bright and alive, mocking the rut that had grown between us. As soon as we pulled up, my mother rushed out the front door, her face pale, her hands wrung together. Malene, she breathed. She's inside. She's been crying all morning. Grant muttered. I'm sure she has. I stepped forward. Mom, I need space. Let me talk to her alone. She hesitated, torn between protecting one daughter and comforting the other. Finally, she nodded. I'll stay in the kitchen. Grant gripped my shoulder. I'll be right outside. When I entered the living room, Eliza sat on the couch, her legs folded under her, wrapped in a blanket like a child. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked smaller than I remembered, broken, maybe, but not innocent. The moment she saw me, she burst into sobs. Maddie, please, can we talk? I stood across from her, refusing to sit. Not yet. Talk, I said. She wiped her face, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for things to go that far. That far? I echoed. Eliza, you slept with my fiancé for months. You planned to take my inheritance. You plotted a future without me. She shook her head quickly, desperately. It wasn't like that. Thomas said. He said things. He said you didn't love him. He said you didn't appreciate him. And you believed him. I asked. She hesitated. And that hesitation was answer enough. Do you know what hurts the most? I continued. Not the affair, not the deceit, not the financial scheming. I stepped closer. It's that you didn't come to me. Not once. Not even as a sister. Not even as a human being. She covered her mouth with her hands, sobbing harder. I was hurting, she cried. I was lonely. You had everything. Your job, your friends, your future. And I had nothing. You were always the chosen one. My voice sharpened. So you took what was mine. She froze, her expression sliding into something darker. Guilt, envy, shame. No, she whispered. He chose me. We were good together. You were good at lying, I corrected. That's all. His voice cracked. You can't just throw away 3 years. You threw them away first, I said. He shook his head violently. No, don't do this. Don't give up on us. Don't walk away. I stayed at him, really seeing him. The manipulator, the planner, the coward, the man who had wanted my future, but not me. There is no us, I said quietly. There never was. Not in the way I believed. He sank onto the porch step, burying his face in his hands. What am I supposed to do now? Grant stepped closer to me, speaking before I could. You face the consequences, like everyone else. Thomas lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. I loved you, he whispered again. No, I whispered back. You loved the version of me who trusted you blindly. She's gone. He gasped like he'd been punched. I stepped back, closing the emotional distance between us like shutting a door. Leave, I said. Now. He stood slowly, trembling. Is this really it? Yes. He nodded once, a broken, defeated movement. I'll go, he said. But this isn't Faye. You're not being Faye. Grant laughed quietly. Faye. You want to talk about Faye? Thomas didn't answer. He walked down the driveway with heavy, uneven steps. When he reached his car, he turned back one last time. You'll regret this, he whispered. I didn't blink. No, I'll heal from it. He got into his car and drove away. The silence afterward felt like rain after a wildfire. Cool and cleansing. Grant exhaled. You did it. My throat tightened. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to, he said gently. It's supposed to feel true. We went inside, and I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Grant disappeared into the kitchen, then returned with water. He didn't push. He didn't rush me. He just sat beside me, a steady presence in a day that had shaken more than I wanted to admit. After a long while, he spoke softly. You know what I admire most about you? I looked at him, surprised. You didn't let them break who you are, he said. You didn't scream. You didn't fall apart. You faced them with the truth. I swallowed hard. I didn't feel brave. That's exactly why you are, he replied. For the first time, I let my head rest against the back of the sofa. My eyes closed. My heart slowed. And for the first time since the bathroom door opened yesterday, I felt something quietly, tenderly hopeful. Freedom. Not from Thomas, not even from Eliza, but from the version of myself who once believed betrayal was the end. Now I knew better. It was the beginning. The morning after Thomas showed up on my doorstep, I woke with a strange sense of clarity. Not peace, that would come much later, but clarity. Sharp and purposeful, like stepping into cold water after hours of stifling heat. I lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the house, the rustle of leaves against the window, the distant sound of a dog barking. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, and yet none of them felt the same. Everything was different now. I got out of bed slowly, stretching muscles that felt sore from tension more than sleep. Downstairs, the faint clatter of dishes let me know Grant was already up. He'd stayed the night, not in a romantic way, but because neither of us trusted the quiet after what had happened. Because the house felt too big, too vulnerable, too filled with echoes. When I walked into the kitchen, he stood at the stove, making scrambled eggs, wearing a borrowed t-shirt of mine and looking more at home here than Thomas ever had. You're awake, he said, giving me a tired but warm smile. Barely, I replied. You should eat something. We've got a long day ahead. I slid into a chair at the table. The fallout. He nodded. Marjorie texted me. A lot is coming. My stomach churned, not from fear, but from anticipation. He set a plate in front of me. You need your strength. I picked up the fork but didn't take a bite. My mind was already racing. What if Thomas tries something else? I asked quietly. What if he goes to my work or posts something online? Grant leaned against the counter. Then we deal with it, but is too focused on saving himself right now to start a smear campaign. I looked up at him. You're sure? No, he admitted, but I know men like him. He'll try to charm his way out of consequences first. Anger comes later. A chill crept up my spine. He stepped closer. You're not alone. Something about the way he said it made my throat tighten. I nodded, unable to speak. Soon after, Marjorie arrived with her usual efficiency. Her binder under one arm, her blazer crisp. She stepped inside like she owned the oxygen in the room. We need to talk strategy, she said without preamble. Grant handed her coffee. She accepted it gratefully, then spread documents across my dining table. There will be a legal storm these next few weeks, she said. So, we need to prepare for every direction. I swallowed. Like what? She pointed at the first document. Thomas's employer may contact you. If he attempts to hide assets or falsify information, they'll likely begin an internal investigation. Another page. Eliza's family will push for reconciliation or damage control. Your mother is already torn. Your father's side will likely take your sisters, considering their history. Another page. Thomas may try to contest the injunction. He may beg. He may manipulate. He may even threaten to sue for defamation. Grant clenched his jaw. He wouldn't dare. He would, Marjorie corrected. Because he's scared. I felt my breath thin. What do I do? She looked directly at me, her expression resolute. You remain consistent. You stick to facts. You stay grounded. Do not let them bait you. I nodded slowly. I could do that. I'd survived worse than words. But then her tone softened. There's something else. I tensed. What? We received an email this morning, she said, sliding her tablet toward me. My stomach flipped as I leaned in to read. It was from Thomas. Long, emotional, a rambling mess of apologies, explanations, excuses. Malene, I made a mistake. I was weak. I was confused. Please don't destroy my life over this. Please don't let your lawyer ruin me. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. I'll do anything. He ended it with a sentence that made my skin crawl. You know I love you more than anyone ever will. I pushed the tablet away, nausea rising. Marjorie studied my reaction. Do you want me to block him on all channels? I hesitated. Part of me wants to read every word he writes so I know what he's planning. And the other part, she asked gently, hates the sound of his voice in my head. Grant placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Then let's silence him. I nodded. Marjorie tapped her screen. Done. She folded her hands. Today we finalized the separation paperwork. Financial freezes are active. Custody hearings for Grant will begin soon. And your sister, she'll likely attempt contact again. She already tried, I whispered. She asked if I could keep this quiet. Marjorie's eyebrows arched. Of course she did. Grant muttered. She's terrified of consequences. And accustomed to escaping them, Marjorie added. I looked down at my hands. I thought she loved me. Grant sat beside me. She loved how you made her feel. That's not the same. I didn't respond. The truth was too sharp. Just then, the doorbell rang. Grant stood instantly. Stay here. My heart jumped wildly. Do you think it could be anyone? He said, but let me check. Marjorie approached the doorway too, ready for battle with nothing but a binder and a brilliant legal mind. Grant peered through the peephole, then sighed. It's your mom. My stomach twisted. I stood slowly. I should talk to her. Do you want me with you? He asked. I shook my head. Let me try alone first. I opened the door. My mother stood there, wringing her hands, her eyes swollen from crying. She pushed past me into the foyer before I could say anything. Malene, she whispered. We need to talk. I shut the door gently. Okay, what's wrong? She turned to me, her expression wavering. Your sister, she's not doing well. She's devastated. She barely slept. She hasn't eaten. Her voice cracked. She said she doesn't want to live anymore. The words hit like a fist to my chest. Grant stepped instinctively. That's manipulation. My mother's head shot toward him. How dare you? No, I said gently. He's right. She blinked rapidly, confusion washing over her. This is what she does, Mom, I continued. She pushes until someone feels responsible for her emotions. She's your sister, my mother whispered. You two used to be inseparable. I swallowed the ache, and she betrayed me in the worst way possible. My mother trembled. She's ashamed. She's scared. She's hurting. So am I said quietly. But no one is rushing to protect me. She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Not the dependable daughter, not the problem solver, not the emotional caretaker. Just me. Malene, she said softly. I don't know how to navigate this. You're both my daughters. I know, I whispered, but only one of us destroyed the other. Her face folded. Taze welled. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. I'm sorry, she whispered into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, absorbing the fragile warmth of her apology. Mom, I love you, but you cannot fix this. And you cannot ask me to be the one who carries her guilt. She nodded slowly. You're right. It was the first time she'd said that to me, ever. When she left, Marjorie exhaled. That went better than expected. Grant squeezed my hand. You handled it perfectly. I didn't feel perfect. I felt bruised, but stronger. The rest of the afternoon passed in paperwork, calls, planning, preparing. By evening, when the sun dipped low and the sky poured amber light across my living room floor, I finally collapsed onto the couch. Grant sat across from me, watching me quietly. After a long moment, he spoke. Can I ask you something? Of course. What's the hardest part of all this, really? I stared at the ceiling, searching for the truth. Losing the illusion, I said. The illusion that my life was stable, that the people I loved were honest, that trust was simple. He nodded. And now? I turned to him. Now everything feels raw, but real. He smiled, soft, tired, genuine. Real is better, even when it hurts. I didn't disagree. When the sky finally darkened, and my house fell into quiet again, Grant stood, stretched, and said he should head home to check on his boys. Before he left, he paused at the door. You know, he said, this isn't the end of your story. I know, I replied. It's the beginning. I held his gaze for both of us. He smiled, then stepped out into the night. When the door closed behind him, I sat alone in the stillness of my house. A house no longer filled with betrayal or lies or manipulation. A house ready for rebuilding. A life ready for reclaiming. The storm had passed. Now came the rebuilding, and the woman I would become next. 2 months later, I walked into my home and didn't flinch. The shadows didn't carry ghosts. The upstairs bathroom didn't sting with memory. The house didn't feel hostile, or wounded, or bruised. It felt like mine. Quiet, sunlit, and whole. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces. It came the day Thomas's injunction was upheld in court. He sat across the room, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. He tried to catch my gaze, but I didn't let him. Not out of cruelty, but out of absolute clarity. When the judge declared that his financial manipulation was documented and that proceedings would move forward in my favor, I felt a weight lift. Not because he was losing, but because I was finally free. It came the day my sister left town. My mother called me, her voice trembling, explaining that Eliza needed distance, reflection, help. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't ask. I simply wished her well. I hoped she would learn to face her shadows instead of always casting them onto me. It came the day Grant's custody hearing ended with full primary custody awarded to him. I watched him walk out of that courthouse with tears in his eyes, relief, victory, heartbreak, all tangled together. His boys ran into his arms, and he held them like they were the only stable thing he'd ever known. Healing came in slow breaths. Long walks, coffee dates with friends who refused to let me disappear, and sessions with a therapist who helped me untangle the intricate knots of betrayal left behind. It came in repainting my bedroom, replacing the towels, getting rid of the sheets Thomas had once slept on. It came in laughter, quiet at first, then real, then most unexpectedly, it came in the form of a man who had walked through his own version of hell beside me. Grant and I didn't rush anything. We didn't force anything. For the first few weeks after the dust settled, we spoke every single day. About court documents. About life. About pain we never imagined we'd share. He helped fix my broken fence one Saturday morning, and I helped him assemble bunk beds for his boys the following weekend. We sat on his back porch, sipping beer, talking about the future, like two people who had once believed theirs had completely ended. One evening, after a long day of sorting through paperwork, he drove me home. We stood on my porch, the air warm and quiet. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, slow, careful, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. He kissed me gently, the way someone touches something they're afraid to break. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt wanted. Not used. Not manipulated. Not taken for granted. Just wanted. But this isn't a love story. Not yet. This is a rebirth story. A rebuilding story. The kind of story where the woman who once walked in on her fiancé and her sister in her bathtub eventually learns that the moment she thought destroyed her was actually the moment that saved her. Today, as I stand in my kitchen, stirring tea, sunlight pooling across the counter, I realize something profoundly important. Betrayal didn't define me. Survival did. And now, freedom does. I learned that love isn't blind trust. It's mutual respect. Partnerships aren't built on sacrifice. They are built on generosity and honesty. And peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you reclaim, one choice at a time. Eliza's absence is quiet. Thomas's consequences continue to unfold. Grant's life is stabilizing into something strong and steady. And I finally became someone I recognize. Someone I'm proud of. Someone who isn't afraid of beginnings anymore. I walk through each room of my house and feel no pain, only gratitude, only strength, only the echo of a woman who stepped into fire and came out forged. I open the back door, breathing in the cool evening air. My phone buzzes on the counter. A message from Grant. Dinner tonight. Something simple. Or we can just talk. Either way, I'd like to see you. I smile, typing back a yes that feels warm and honest. No fear. No hesitation, just possibility. Before heading out, I pause in the doorway and glance upstairs toward the bathroom where everything ended. And then I close the door softly behind me, knowing that it's no longer a place of brokenness. It's just a room. My life isn't trapped inside it anymore. And neither am I. I hope my story resonates with some of you. Have you ever had a moment where you realized the people you trusted most were actually plotting against you? What did you do then? Tell me in the comments below. I truly want to know.